Welcome back to the Charismatic Voice. I have heard your comments, both down below in YouTube in those comments and at the live chats. You guys have been wanting me to do King Diamond for a long time, so it is happening today. This will be my very first time hearing King Diamond. I get the impression from many of you that there's some sort of shock value here. I have no idea what it's going to be though. We've been carefully protecting my ears, so I've heard none of King Diamond before. The song that we're going to do is Sleepless Nights, performed in 2015 in Philadelphia. And when I was reading a little bit more about this song, I was very surprised to see that it just resembled an opera. The entire album overall has tons of drama, like a king is returning to his throne, and it's difficult because his sister is dead and he has unanswered questions about that, and his mother is involved with a therapist, and also he's struggling with madness. Like, this is the stuff that opera is made of, high drama. I'm really curious what this is going to sound like. So let's get to it. Okay, we're going to go back a little bit. I'm a little confused actually about his voice right now because it's very unusual for a person to immediately start a song out in falsetto like this, and especially his kind of falsetto, what he's doing here. He's in a falsetto register, but he's actually adding a little bit of like what some opera singers would call squealo to that falsetto, which is giving it not as much of the spacious etherealness that I would associate with falsetto, but a little bit more drive. You could even say that he is reinforcing his falsetto here to give it a little bit more power and drive, which is very interesting. Very, very interesting indeed. If you want to talk about anatomically, that means his cricothyroid muscles are the ones that are most active in that vocal production. But he might be adding just a teensy bit of TA or thyroid muscles to reinforce that falsetto. Very curious. Also, I loved the way that immediately at the beginning we had this feeling of total rocker vibe, and then it just panned out and it felt very like the ambience entirely changed. And yeah, very, very, a lot to digest here in that first bit. So back to the beginning. It's pretty. I know this is hardly a bit, but there's so much information to digest vocally that he's done already. He even does like a little bit of growling at the end. It sounded like a little bit of false fold involvement right as he was coming off of that. And I'm very interested in some of the slower slides that he's doing. It feels spooky, honestly. And I think he's got bones underneath his microphone. I don't know. I'll get a closer look, I think. He reminds me a little bit of Rob Halford, honestly. Now that I know who Rob Halford is, I can make that comparison. Thank you, everybody who introduced me to Rob Halford, by the way. That's really interesting. He definitely went into like a shouty, but it sounded like supported, screamy section there. And I didn't know how to assess that. It was just like all happening and so many different shifting at that point. So I'm going to go back and listen to that section again. Briefly, I love this steampunk vibe, right? It's like gothic steampunk, really interesting makeup. The top hat is classy. I dig top hats, not gonna lie. And love the buttons on the jacket. And definitely this microphone stand looks really cool. I think I did read it's like, is that a femur bone? I read something about him and having a skull beneath his microphone, but this looks like a cross of bones. I like the cotton ball. Oh! Yeah, he added that fry again at the end here. That's curious. You don't often hear falsetto with fry. I have heard it before, but it just sounds like a different, more full way of using it. I like it. It adds to the creepy factor. Huh. Okay, so check out this little scream right after the strikes midnight. Another, I'm not really sure what the words were right there. By the way, his vowel formation in that falsetto is spot on. It's very, very, very good. It really sounds like a countertenor from opera in a lot of ways, except for the countertenor would have that more dome, where he's got a lot more of the forward buzz happening. That's sort of like kind of sound that's happening in his voice. But yeah, this scream that he does right here, it almost sounded like he was yodeling within the scream right after he drops. Let's see that. Oh, no, go back. I think I missed that. Okay, coming up right here. Do you hear how the voice breaks in the middle? It sounds like he's doing this on purpose to almost do like a yodel scream. That's very interesting. That makes sense to portray madness. That really, really makes sense to me. I liked this glissando that he did at the end. A glissando like that to me is an indication of really good vocal health. Glissandi in general, so a slide meaning like go from low to high, and sometimes high to low. They're both considered a glissando. If you do low, high, low, that's even better. That's a really good vocal exercise to help just smooth out any places. When you're singing, there's constantly shifting muscles in your larynx where, maybe one muscle is dominant and it needs to shift to the next one. There's different stretching. It's a lot of complex movements that need to be coordinated to get a certain sound. So a slide shows that you're able to smoothly transition between all kinds of notes, which means having a lot of control over all of those muscles and the trade-off between them. It also means there are different things above your larynx and your vocal tract that are also shifting during that time. So really, glissandos can be a fantastic exercise to help a person learn more coordination. And so this was really cool to hear him do this one. Let's go back. Oh. Cool. was amazing. That bit of guitar solo in there almost sounded to me like a classical violin solo. And it's because of the way he was essentially moving in an arpeggio and then just shifted up. So there were specific distances between the notes that he was playing. There were lots of leaps in there that made up an arpeggio. And the arpeggio was like sitting like right here first. And then it shifted up. And it was the same pitches, just shifted up like so the bottom pitch then would have been the same pitch on top, but an octave higher. That to me is a figure I would hear in a classical concerto with a violin. This part. And then shift it up there. Cool. Group. Oh, that's cool. That it looks like the King Diamond essentially was pressing on one of the guitar notes to help shift it at some point. That was some fun staging. That transition was really lovely. They kept the same tempo going through it, but just really shifted the overall feel. So it became much longer, much smoother, higher as well. It was a beautiful transition. It really worked. There's something about this band that combines rocking out with elegance. I don't know how else to say that. It's very interesting. It's even in King Diamond's posture, the way he carries himself, there is a certain regalness to him. It's very, very interesting. I like this transition. I cannot sleep at night. I will do anything to see. Like he has two voices in here. He's got that scream voice, which sounds pretty healthy to me, honestly. That the scream is sounding pretty good, and this falsetto on top is like maybe that's the sane voice, and the screams are the insane, the going mad voice. I don't know. The dichotomy is so fascinating. I also am having a lot of appreciation for where he's choosing to let the vibrato enter. If you listen carefully, you'll hear that there are just certain extended notes that he'll choose vibrato to enter. It's not every single one. It is ones that seem like they might have a relaxation in them. So sleep was one of the words I've consistently heard vibrato enter into. There was a couple more. Let's go back and look at that. It's very deliberate. I will do anything to see. So I will do anything to see Missy again. He's also shifting the vowel on Missy so he can open his mouth more, which is the correct vowel modification for that top note, by the way. So Missy again is where he had more vibrato enter there as well. I wonder if that was intentional to have the things that looked or felt like more home, like sleep and Missy. I'm assuming he's talking about his sister there. I wonder if that was intentional to have the vibrato enter at that moment. I'm not sure. Maybe he thought like, oh, that's just better for the sound and emotion. But it is very deliberate. To say I'm not hearing a lot of another voice in the mix, but I think there is one there, and I don't know that I would have noticed it. I would have thought it was just him doubling, to be honest, if I hadn't seen the video of the woman also singing in here. So I'm pretty surprised by that. I thought it was just him. And then I want to talk a little bit about this really big range of his scream. He feels like he's using overall in his voice just an extreme range. And when he's doing the screams, they definitely have moments where the overall frequency is lower or higher. And then he goes up into the upper voice as well, which is even higher. Sometimes screaming, I think, can be perceived as not really having a pitch. But if you were to look at it within a spectrogram, which is essentially a visualization of frequencies, you would see that the main frequencies that he's creating are hanging out lower or higher at times. And then above that, instead of seeing really clear harmonics, you would see a lot more like just white noise. So it wouldn't have clear bands of where those harmonics are in the scream. Let's go back a little bit. Hey, that's a really good example of when he went from falsetto to full, back into his full voice right there. So let's go back one more time. Listen to this. Falsetto here. Or reinforced falsetto. And there's the full voice. So sometimes people will call that chest voice there. It's probably not quite the right name for it. Some people will refer to that as head voice if they've come from a classical background like I have. So he went from falsetto into head. Chest and head voice there are put together in modal voice or full voice, which is the voice that most men speak in. But sometimes that head voice is also referred to as mixed voice, and they'll actually call it mixed register. Mixing is often pulling elements of different registers together, but it can be used as a definition to refer to a register, and that's more common that you would see that in like musical theater especially. Back one more. Love the storytelling. So cool. So when he got to pain, where the music shifted underneath him, he also shifted the timbre of his voice. So the killing the is all got more of that squealo that I was talking about, a little more compression essentially. And then at pain, he lets a lot more air into the sound to really pick up the storytelling with those words. There is no voices. awesome vocal expression. He's essentially taken the sound of like groaning or pain and made it musical. That's really, really cool. He even is using the breath in there so you can hear labored breathing. Wow. That was like metal opera. I love the way that he was combining what's essentially like a classical vocal technique, or often associated as a classical vocal technique, with all of these harsh vocals that I would associate more with metal or rock. It was a beautiful overlapping of those two things. And I feel that he took it even further by adding so much additional vocal expression. He has a ton of control. I especially loved this ending when he was using the breath to continue the energy. I've heard singers do that before, especially in opera, where you're using the breath as a way to not have a drop in the energy, but rather let a person know how you're feeling through how you breathe, which is very interesting. You could feel the labored breath here. And I'm curious what he would sound like on some of those classic countertenor roles. His squealo would really cut over an orchestra, and I would find that fascinating to hear. So, since I would like to hear more of him, I invite you to make recommendations down below about which King Diamond song I should do next. And if you don't want to miss it when it comes out, hit subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications so you know when that's happening. You can also find me here on YouTube doing premieres every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday at 8 a.m. Arizona time. And you can find me on Patreon or at thecharismaticvoice.com. Thank you.